Chapter 1 of the Motorboat Boys' River Chase. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Lynne Thompson. The Motorboat Boys' River Chase by Louis Arundel. Chapter 1. Ready for the Start. "What are we waiting for, Commodore Jack?" "Yes, I'm the last one to be in a hurry, boys, but it seems to me we ought to be getting away. The river ain't waiting up for us, you notice." "Hold your horses, Buster, and count noses. Perhaps you'll find that there are only 5 of us present." "Huh! Guess you're right, Josh Purdue. But what's become of Jimmy? I never heard a splash, and I don't see him swimming if he's a regular water duck. Water's too cold, anyway, this fine April day, for going in." "Why, Jack sent him back to the post office to see if there was any mail. He's thinking of George here, who's expecting a letter from that sweet little Southern girl he met last fall, when we were knocking around the Florida Keys in our motorboats after coming down the coast." "Rats! Speak for yourself, Josh!" exclaimed the 5th member of the party, whose name seemed to be George, and who was a nervous, active boy, one of those kind who are always wanting to do things in a hurry. "Didn't I see you get a lavender-colored letter only last week? And when I walked past him purposely in the post office, fellows, oh, my goodness, you ought to have sniffed the lovely perfume that oozed out of that envelope. Did Josh tear the end off? Not that I could notice, but he took out his knife and cut it so carefully like, you'd think—" "Sure we've got all the grub aboard, Jack?" asked the said Josh, who had turned more or less red in the face with confusion at being so unexpectedly attacked. "Because it'd be a mighty tough thing to get snugly settled in the first camp of the season, and find you've gone and left that elegant home-cured ham to home." "Our ham's safe, all right. I'm looking right at it now," declared George, as he stared at the rosy face of Josh, and chuckled aloud. "I've gone over the list and checked things off, with the help of Herb here, and so far as we could tell, there's nothing missing. Things seem to be in good shape, after lying all winter in the boatyard, and the engines work splendidly," was the report of the boy named Jack, to whom the others seemed to look as though he might have some right to that title of Commodore, being the chief officer of the Motorboat Club. They were standing on the river bank, just below a small town that was situated on the upper Mississippi, and fastened to the shore by stout cables were 3 power boats of vastly different patterns. One of them, owned by George Rollins, was a speed boat, narrow of beam, and capable of doing wonderful stunts in the way of annihilating space whenever the big-powered motor chose to act decently, which happened more frequently these days than in the past, when it used to give the skipper much trouble. This boat was known as a freak, and went under the name of the Wireless. The second was a good, roomy craft, which George called a pumpkin seed, because it took up so much room. Herbert Dixon was the satisfied owner of this boat, and as it bore the name of Comfort, it may readily be understood that the captain was a quiet, unassuming lad, who as a rule minded his own business, and always wanted comfort before speed. Still, it had often happened that Herb got to his destination long before George, who spent so much time tinkering with his balky engine, while that of the roomy craft had never been known to act sulky, or quit business, but worked right along like a well-oiled clock. The third boat was a happy medium between the other 2, and went under the name of the Tramp. Jack Stormways held the wheel of this, and as a rule the absent member, Jimmy Brannigan, served as his crew. The Tramp was a reliable article, and probably better fitted for cruising than either of the others, when one wanted an all-round craft, capable of speed, and yet not cramped for room, or cranky in action. These 6 lads had formed a club, and during the last 2 years had been able, by reason of fortunate circumstances, whereby they came into a considerable sum of money, to make several long cruises. These have been narrated at length in previous volumes of this series, and the reader of the present book, who has not had the pleasure of making the acquaintance of Jack and his chums up to now, and would know more about them, is referred to the earlier numbers for full particulars, with the assurance
Sample complete. Ready to continue?